Keith Sanchez, Paige Dimakos. This is Draft Club Fix My Franchise Edition. We going to the Bayou. We going to my city, the New Orleans Saints. We are fixing the New Orleans Saints, and we have to ask ourselves, right? You go from the right, hosting a Super Bowl, the Lombardi Trophy, Drew Brees, to now the Saints are one of the worst teams in the NFC, and the future looks bleak. And we have to ask ourselves, how the hell did we get here, Paige Dimakos? Let's start on the left with our guy, GM Mickey Loomis. I know you have a salary cap conversation that you want to have.
I do want to have this salary cap conversation because let me just tell you, Saints fans, and Keith Sanchez sitting across from me. The salary cap, my friends, is in fact real.
Not real.
And you are reaping what you sow. And unfortunately, these last few years, Mr. Payton is having a damn good time in Denver, not having to deal with any of the shit he caused in New Orleans by kicking the can down the road with the Drew Brees contract, of which he's still paying paid and not playing football. That is a very bad problem. Now, the encapsulation of this is that I was watching something as we prepared for this from somebody who is a New Orleans Saints fan who hosts a big podcast, right? And he was talking about how Saints fans are excited, okay, about what's been going on. And what's been going on is they are maneuvering at an insane level to try and get as much cash, like pennies back, right? As many as they can because the cap situation's bad. And they're at $31 million. Justin Jefferson makes $35 million a year. Like, you are not a couple of minimum player away from being a good team. That's your problem. That's enough cap space, 15th, okay, of the 32, if you got a good roster. You don't have a good roster. And you don't have a good roster because on top of the salary cap situation, Keith, now it's your turn. The personnel part has not been good either.
Oh, yeah. You know that's what I'm going to pick up
right there. Pick up where I left off.
And we have our guy, Trevor Penning, up here. But I don't even want to just keep it as a Trevor Penning solely focused situation. And because it's been multiple draft picks. You go all the way back to Marcus Davenport. You talk about Peyton Turner. Then Trevor Penning, you traded up with Trevor Penning. You traded with the Philadelphia Eagles, who are now hosting the Super Bowl Lombardi Trophy with 20 draft picks over the next 2 years, still 20. Locked and loaded. Yeah. And so talk about him. You talk about Keandre Miller, who you drafted a couple years ago out of TCU, trying to look for a replacement for Alvin Kamara. All of these picks, to be completely honest, have not worked out.
No.
And this is not revisionist history. I had a problem when they drafted these guys. I sat there at post-drafts with multiple drafts. I said I give these drafts a C- because on my board, where I ranked these guys, they were just not worthy of the pick and the selection that they were because they had concerns. And unfortunately, those concerns showed for the New Orleans Saints. And we've been, obviously, the Draft Network, we've had conversations, right, about blowing it up, right? If you don't have a franchise quarterback, blow it up. I've always been against that, and primarily with the Saints because I always felt like the Saints had a good team.
Yeah.
They did have a good team.
Yeah.
You had Michael Thomas, right? And then, you believe Michael Thomas was coming back. You had Ryan Ramczyk. You got DeMario Davis. You had just all of these different players, Marcus Lattimore. You had a really good defense, right?
Yeah.
If you only one quarterback away, unfortunately, because you missed on those draft picks, you're not just a quarterback away anymore. And it's time to blow it up because you have to reset and refigure this thing out. And that's why it starts with GM Mickey Loomis.
Who was the center? Max Unger?
Yeah, Max Unger.
Okay, so let me bring you back to that.
Yep.
Max Unger was a perennial Pro Bowl center that really had this team. From that trade on, things have not been, they never got back to the Super Bowl standard that they were at.
Yep.
And that was I remember that trade because he was so much a part of the success, right? And then he went to Seattle, and Seattle, it was like very good situation for Seattle. And I think back to that, and that's like when you talk about how we got here, like it dates that far back. Like it started with Sean Payton, and that's where this started. Bad moves, bad decisions, not keeping the core and the good players you needed around, and then continuously spending the cap and kicking the can down the road to get another Super Bowl that you never got and you didn't get close.
Yeah, you can't have a life full of exceptions because then your entire life becomes exception, right? And that's what the New Orleans Saints have. The reason the Saints are here is a compound interest situation of one pick turning into 2 picks, turning into 4 picks, turning into 8 picks, and now you have a roster that you have complete concerns about. This is death by 1,000 cuts to why this roster is where it's at
straight up
at this very moment. And
Yeah, no. So, and one quick thing. So this team starts off 3-0 this year.
Yep.
Okay. There were no murders in the whole city of New Orleans, the murder capital of the United States. This is totally serious. Saints, you have a obligation morally for the city of New Orleans to get your shit together, okay? Because the city of New Orleans was so happy during that 3-week stretch that nobody killed anybody. And if that tells you exactly how big of a deal football is down there, I don't know what else can actually spell that out. Because the last time they were all happy was this time. Yeah. And that was during when?
That was 2009. That was my senior year of high school, and I remember this because I was hanging out the sunroof on my way to Bourbon Street.
Oh man,
I had a good time.
He was having himself some good time.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing: I didn't go to school. I didn't make it to school the next day.
Patrice, come on.
But that's also part of it, right? Still living in the glory days of Drew Brees. I guess I gotta say this: Drew Brees ain't that no more. So it's time to
and he hasn't been there for a while.
For a couple years, yeah. So it's time to reinvent this team and figure out what you're trying to do. So
and neither is Sean Payton, man.
Yeah.
And also Sean did y'all dirty. He retired. I don't know why y'all still love this man. He retired, fake retired, and then came back to Denver a year later and doing the damn thing.
Yep, with a fresh start.
Yeah, I ain't about that life. With a new quarterback that he likes a lot. I don't like seeing that if I was them.
Yep. So we talk about offseason, and what is the offseason goal? Because I think every franchise needs goals, right? You have to identify where we need to get better. What is the theme of the offseason? And for the New Orleans Saints, it is simple as hell. Pick a quarterback and stick with it, right? Yeah. Because you can no longer do this cycle of Jameis Winston to Taysom Hill to Jameis Winston, get Derek Carr. Derek Carr is injured, but play him. Then we draft Jake Haener, see if we want to play him. We draft Spencer Rattler and don't know what we have in Spencer, but then Derek Carr comes back, but then we kind of like
This is Spencer. All back-to-back years, too. It's like this wasn't over like 15 years. This is, we're talking post-Drew Brees, it was new plan. We didn't stick to a damn plan the whole time.
Didn't stick to anything. And I think that I'm going to go ahead and go with my move, right? If I was GM, I'm going with Spencer Rattler at this point. Derek Carr, for what his roster is at this point, Derek Carr plays well. You're still not winning a Super Bowl, right? So you have a young quarterback on a rookie contract. You might as well figure out who the hell he is. You know who Derek Carr is. Trade Derek Carr if you have to release him, whatever that may be, right? But it doesn't matter. It's you know what they call it? I'm about to get into my economics.
Oh, okay.
It is called sunken costs,
right?
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, I even in my bag right now.
Yeah.
And so let Derek Carr be. Find out if you have a real good investment in Spencer Rattler because this is the key. If you're bad, you're going to be picking towards the top again. Mm-hmm. You don't want to wonder if Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback or not. You want to know if he's good or if he's bad, and then that way you can maneuver and figure things out.
Yeah, and the pick a QB thing and stick with it it's important for a lot of organizations that just lose sight of like we're just going to keep trying to make this work, and they keep throwing darts at this situation that is. You can't throw a dart and invest in a quarterback. You got to have conviction in
what you do.
Correct.
You got to have conviction in what you do and be able to stick with it through tough times and be like, you know what, I know that this guy is talented, whoever it may be.
And Sean put them in a tough spot with the Taysom Hill experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my favorite things to dunk on regularly because Sean Payton is so offensively gifted in how he calls plays and he's so well respected that people gave him a longer leash in how stupid the Taysom Hill experiment was. Mm-hmm. It was never going to work. Yeah. And everybody just thought, well, he's Sean Payton, he's going to figure it out. No, he's not going to make work a non-quarterback to turn into a quarterback. It was Tim Tebow 2.0, but we were going to make it work.
Yeah.
And the whole time it was going on, I was like, Saints fans, stop drinking the damn Kool-Aid. He ain't making the transition. This is not going to work. Yeah. And we still got him on the damn roster.
Yeah, you paid him $25 million a year to make one trick play.
To do the Wildcat, I just what are we doing, yo? What are we doing in a quarterback-driven league? Yep. You can't do that. You can't do that. But let's get into some positivity here.
So they appear to be slightly turning the page, right?
Slightly.
Slightly. So you still, obviously, Mickey Loomis is still there. And I think he's built up so much cachet over the years with winning a Super Bowl. And then, he did have that one, I think, good year in the draft where it was, Marcus Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, right? Found those guys.
I'm going to be honest. I feel like we need a new regime. No, I'm just I'm having a tough time with him still there.
No,
honestly.
I'm with you on that. I was just explaining the outline of what I think is happening.
Yeah,
right?
You're
he's surviving coaches now.
Of course, and that's the tough part is all the things you discussed, the roster construction. That's his job.
That's the issue. That's
like the salary cap, that's your job, man.
Your job.
Like these are not coach issues. These are personnel issues.
Yeah.
And that's the part where either we got to admit that Sean Payton had a lot more say in the personnel department, which we know he did, and he was partially responsible, or also it's time to figure this out. So maybe now Mickey can move past this with a new young face, probably one of the top coaching candidates over the last few years, Keith, and Kellen Moore. Right?
And
I would be excited if I was a Saints fan.
And you should, because you should be excited from the perspective of, too, is like, hey, do we have one of the young offensive geniuses in the NFL? And there are a lot of parallels to him and Sean Payton.
Yeah.
They both came from NFC East teams, winning teams, right? Both young coaches, and then now they have the opportunity to almost figure out their own quarterback situation, because remember when Sean got there, it was the dynamic between Drew Brees and Dante Culpepper, right? And so now he has opportunity to make a decision. And this is why I say pick a quarterback and stick with it, because you want after 1 year, and I will hope that they didn't hire Kellen Moore for a 1-year rental, right?
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, you hope not. But you want after 1 year Kellen Moore to be able to walk back into the offseason and say, Spencer's my guy. He's not my guy.
Correct.
I need to draft a guy. I don't need to draft a guy. You will want to have that perspective on it, and you got to believe in him. You hired him. You gave him the money.
Yeah.
You got to have conviction in who the head coach is. Let him coach.
Well, and if you're Mickey Loomis, you got to kind of take a back seat here to let the offensive guy who's proven himself through working with multiple quarterbacks now to be able to have conviction in this.
Guys.
All the guys.
Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott,
Jalen Hurts.
And you know what I respect about him is that I didn't care for him much with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for him much with the Dallas Cowboys.
Same.
But with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think he was almost forced to reinvent himself.
He was.
Because I think the NFL was rejecting his ideology and how he wanted to go about it.
100%.
But I respect the fact that he committed to a process and something different.
He also navigated what was, even though it ended with the Super Bowl, one of the most tumultuous seasons, quite frankly. This was Nick Sirianni yelling at the fans constantly.
Yeah.
You got your wide receiver reading a book on the sideline. You got everybody
trying to help himself.
Yeah, and let's be honest, he helped in working with Jalen Hurts to kind of reinvent Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Hurts totally reinvented himself and then proved himself at the highest level. And you gotta buy into that. And so if he goes, I believe in Spencer, then you gotta build around Spencer. If he goes, I want to go get a guy, then you gotta go get a guy. And you'll figure it out this year. We're a Spencer. This is a Spencer show. Yeah. Spencer's a good kid. He's an Arizona kid. And I think at the end of the day, you want to talk about a kid who's been through it. That's a kid who's been through it.
Tough. He battle tested.
100%. 100%.
Definitely battle tested.
Well, let's talk about the key. Well, can we just give a moment for the boot down
there
here?
We go to boot.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
baby,
trying to tell. The greatest city in the entire world.
See,
New Orleans.
just what happens. I give him an inch, he takes a mile.
Listen,
it's unbelievable.
It's a New Orleans mile, baby.
Okay.
I mean, it's
all right.
fun.
All right. Moving right along here. Key subtractions. Go ahead,
Let's talk about
Keith.
subtraction. So they lost Paulson Adebo, right, starting corner guy that they drafted. Adebo had ups and downs. Played really well at moments.
Yep.
Honestly, cost the team at moments.
Yep.
So I would say this is okay. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Willie Gay Jr., Will Harris, all guys that Willie Gay is a starting linebackers. Valdez-Scantling and Will Harris, those are rotational, situational, starting type guys. So haven't had any big.
You're not losing somebody that you feel like, okay, we got to go make sure we make up for this guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, additions on the positive side here.
Yeah, additions. Love the Justin Reed pickup. This is obviously he's from New Orleans. You put him and Tyrann Mathieu together, you get a little Bayou home cooking, right?
You get a little sauce, baby. Those boys from New Orleans, man. Yeah, you're gonna get a little sauce.
Yep, and then you see them making up for some of the departures. Obviously, they signed safety Isaac Yiadom again, so they're adding to the secondary, right? And then re-signing Chase Young, wanting to bring him back, see if they can get something out of him. They've been trying to figure out the edge rusher position forever. Then you got two more boot boys they signed. Will Clapp, Devon Gottschall. So
boot boys is fun. That's awesome, man. The boot boys.
So not too many splash things, right? But they've been kind of somewhat consistent, just kind of filling the roster needs and obviously the salary cap situation, so they couldn't have any splash needs.
Well, and that's the thing. The thing, if you're a Saints fan, you got to be happy with when you have very little flexibility. These are the types of moves that they don't make the headlines, but these are the ones that win you football games.
And you hope that they tilt the scale one way or the other, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's look at team needs here.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go through this. Wide receiver. It was Michael Thomas was supposed to be the guy that's still there, right, on the Hall of Fame trajectory. And one of the more random / weird career-ending situations.
100%.
When you talk about a guy that went from breaking NFL season records and the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Won me a lot of fantasy games. A lot of fantasy games.
To now not there and not even in the NFL anymore. Just I think he played one more year, and then that was a wrap. So question marks about that. Offensive tackle, we talked about it. Trevor Penning.
Yeah.
Can't have that. They drafted Talise. Yeah, they drafted Talise Fuaga last year, but also Ryan Ramczyk retired. So you have another need at offensive tackle than the edge rusher position. New Orleans Saints.
Oh boy, here we go.
Come talk to you, boy, because y'all keep drafting edge rushers and they keep on missing.
Yeah.
Every single year they need an edge rusher. Every single year they draft the edge rusher, and every single year that edge rusher is not good enough. Our guy Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan got drafted, I believe, in 2011.
I was gonna say it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while. And every year, he signs on for one more year. You know what I think Cam Jordan is doing? He is trying to help the New Orleans Saints out and say, listen, I don't want to retire until y'all figure this out.
Until you figure out how to replace me.
Yeah,
dear God.
He's begging y'all to find a guy for him. And they're not getting it figured out.
This is a good class, though, for this, right? Yeah, you feel good about going and finding an edge.
I hope. I hope. I don't have much confidence. And then we just talked about them losing Paulson to Debo. They need another cornerback. And then, hey, you want to draft a backup guy, quarterback, you slide Derek Carr out of there. I'm not in on the Jake Hayner situation. No. Never was. So if you move on from Derek Carr, you need somebody to back up Spencer Rattler. Now let's activate this thing, right? We laid out the team.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be honest. I love this draft class. I'm a big fan of this draft class. One, because one of these guys is a U guy, right? And I associate guys that Keith tells me about very early that then later on in the process, I'm like, hey, now everybody's talking about them, right? That's Savion Williams. But let's start at the top. And
let's go.
Honestly, he came into the year as the #1 player for the draft.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, people are questioning him. And
injury, probably.
Yeah, my thing is for the New Orleans Saints with Will Johnson is that he's just as good as Derek Stingley. I think he's in the same bracket with Patrick Surtain and those guys. I think this is one of those situations where the draft community is simply overthinking it. Will Johnson is a lockdown corner. You lost Marshawn Lattimore. I'm sorry. You replace him with Will Johnson.
What a great way to not have to worry about that anymore.
Yep.
Honestly, I need this for the people, okay? Because I know what the answer is. Who's the #1 cornerback on your board?
Oh, it's Will Johnson. And I think it's Will Johnson.
Not Travis Hunter?
I think it's a gap, too.
Just wanted to make sure we kept that at home so we can check notes later on. All right, #2 here, a guy that we got to interview and got to know really well at Oregon, Josh Connerly.
We just talked about it in team needs. Go get your offensive tackle. There are tons of offensive tackles in this class. I think the sweet spot is the top of the second round to find one of these guys. You plug Josh Connerly into left tackle. You move Talise Fuaga back to his natural position at right tackle. Now you locked and loaded and you're ready to roll for the future with Spencer Rattler.
I love that for Josh. All right, this is a U guy, Savion Williams.
So
talk to me about what he does well. Why should Saints fans be excited about him?
Yeah, you should get excited about him because if and we talked about Taysom Hill, right? About those guys that do multiple different things. Savion is an electric player that you shouldn't put in a box. This guy is 6'4", 225 pounds, ran a 4.4, right? Short area quickness, especially for tall people, is not something that you see, and he has it. This guy's played running back, he's played wide receiver, he's played tight end. He's played
6'4" and he ran a 4.4?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, so you're talking about getting a freak athlete in the third round, and you can put him in so many different places. I want people to think if Deebo Samuel was bigger, faster, more explosive.
Ooh.
I think that's what Savion Williams could be. And you're talking about an offense that they need some layups from time to time. And those type of situations could be layups. So that's why I like Savion Williams.
Fast and a big body wide receiver. What more do you want?
Thank you.
Go up and get the ball, baby. That's what I'm
talking about. You need an X guy. You got Chris Olave there. You need a big body wide receiver.
It's a nice one,
that can stretch the field. So all season grade, have to give him a C+. Okay. I love the I'm gonna say I like the head coaching hire.
Me too.
With Kellen Moore.
That kind of tipped the scales positively for us here.
They freed up salary cap space because the salary cap is not real.
Okay. This is my part that I get to talk about since we're not gonna pretend like the salary. I'm going to educate the Saints fans, okay? Salary cap will continue to be real, but I have to give you guys some credit for what has been done because a bad situation, they have made the best of it, right? By really going back to the drawing board, renegotiating a bunch of current contracts. And those are not fun conversations to have.
No.
You're calling players to tell them you'd like to pay them less money, basically. I mean, that's what it is. Let's just be honest. You're taking a pay cut, or we're going to move money around. But either way, what we originally agreed to, we're not, we can't do that anymore. Help us out. It's a very hard conversation to have. And Mickey Loomis is having a lot of these conversations. My brother is going through it right now, okay? So I just, shout out to Mickey, because as much as I said what I said earlier and was critical of him, I think this shows that he's really putting an effort to move past this era of Saints football, because he's doing something that most people don't have the ego to put aside to go, yeah, I got to grovel with my current roster and tell them, yeah, our cap situation ain't good. Help us out. And when you got a guy like Tyrann Mathieu in your locker room that is a leader, is a guy who's from New Orleans, who takes that cut, and
Cam Jordan,
these are big voices in your locker room. That helps you. Helps you. And I think that's good on Mickey. That's why we're both excited about the Saints. Tempering our expectations. I want to say excited, kinda. Yeah. That's the right way to say it.
I'm going to say this, right? All of this is still going to start with the draft, right?
Yeah,
so you have to get the draft right. So that's why we say stay tuned in with us, right? Because we're going to give them a post-draft off-season grade, right? And after, we'll try to see if the Saints went with our alignment as far as fixing the franchise.
Probably just follow the mock draft that we did. I'm going to be honest. If you want to, as I will tell everybody else, every franchise we do these Fix My Franchise, we have a consulting fee, okay? Feel free to pay it and have the draft club make all the picks. We don't need none of the credit. None of the credit. You get that, Mickey Loomis. So just call us, man. There
we go. Well, there you have it. I'm Keith Sanchez. That's Paige Dimakos. This is Draft Club. Fix your franchise.